We have Defense Minister Anita Anand standing by as we try to get a little more information and details about the big announcement that was just made in Ottawa. Minister Anand, thank you so much for your time. We haven't had a chance to meet. This is Neil Köksal in the Power and Politics studio. I don't think you can see me, but I'm very glad for your time. So thank you.
Hi, Neil.
Well, let's start with the announcement, the extension, the expansion of Operation Unifier, more personnel, but again, stressing the training component of this, a non-combat role, no lethal weapons, as the Ukrainians have asked for. How will that, in your view, actually deter potential Russian aggression?
Let me take a step back and just paint the scene. Since 2015, we have had approximately 200 Canadian Armed Forces members on the ground in Ukraine. And through Operation Unifier, we have trained over 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers, 2,000 of whom are members of the Ukrainian National Guard. Our footprint in Ukraine is significant, and the extension and expansion of Operation Unifier under today's announcement commits approximately $340 million and effectively doubles the capacity of Canadian Armed Forces personnel on the ground in Ukraine for the next 3 years.
How does that signal to a country like Russia and a leader like Vladimir Putin to stay away, to stay out of Ukraine, a further incursion into Ukraine?
The most significant contribution that Canada as a country can make is through the continued training and reinforcement in that respect of Ukrainian expertise on the ground. When I'm in conversation with my NATO counterparts, they universally point to the value and the importance of Canada's mission in Ukraine under Unifier. And make no mistake, it's not just Operation Unifier in terms of our presence in that region. We have approximately 900 soldiers in the Baltic states. I'll be visiting Latvia in the coming days under Operation Reassurance. And so let's remember that there is geopolitical, geographical instability in that region, and what Canada is offering is expertise in training as well as non-lethal aid at the current time. And we have to remember that we did announce a $150 million loan last week to Ukraine for its economic development. So our support as a Canadian government is comprehensive. It's across the board. A number of ministries are involved in this assisting of Ukraine at the current time, and we will continue to evaluate the situation. It is fluid, it is concerning, and we will make sure that we are there for Ukraine.
Can you give us a sense, Minister, of what specifically in terms of non-lethal equipment and gear you're going to be sending?
At the current time, we have already provided items such as military or mobile hospitals, surveillance equipment, communications equipment, equipment to assist in terms of whether there'd be an explosion or not, and the types of equipment that we will continue to send in terms of non-lethal aid are along those lines. We will continue to evaluate what equipment needs are on the ground for the Ukrainian troops and provide that aid accordingly. But as I said, it's along the lines of the items I just mentioned.
Will Canada resume sharing satellite maps and data the way it has in the past?
That's a good question. We are currently discussing this issue. Of course, I'm in very close touch with General Wayne Eyre, and I will be speaking again with my counterpart in Ukraine, Minister Reznikov, where this issue will continue to be discussed. But I don't want to underestimate the importance of what we announced today, the extension of Operation Unifier, the assurance that we will have more and more troops on the ground, 60 members of the Canadian Armed Forces leaving in the coming days, for example, and this is a mark of Canadian commitment to the security and stability of Ukraine and the international rules-based order.
You mentioned training the National Guard. Will they be training any other kinds of troops in Ukraine?
At the current time, this is a continuation and expansion of our current training mission. So we expect the training that we have undertaken to continue. It is extremely important for the the soldiers on the ground in Ukraine to have this expertise, and as I said, it is valued and should not be underestimated in terms of preparing for any potential further Russian aggression.
I know it's a fluid situation. Is the door still open? Should Ukraine continue to ask, Minister, for the kinds of weapons that they're asking? Lethal
As I
weapons?
said, we have to date taken a very comprehensive approach to assisting Ukraine, and we are continually evaluating the requests that Ukraine is making and our capacity to deliver on those requests. But I will reiterate that one of the most important contributions that Canada as a country can make is in the area of personnel and training, and that should be continually emphasized.
We're getting response from Conservative shadow ministers for your file, as well as others involved in this critical situation. Minister, one part of the statement, Canada's Conservatives call on Prime Minister Trudeau to provide lethal weapons to Ukraine, including weapons originally destined for the Kurdish Peshmerga, and they ask that the Trudeau government restore radar sat imaging and use Magnitsky sanctions against those responsible for Russia's aggression against Ukraine. What's your response to that?
My response is that given the fluidity of the situation and Canada's unwavering and steadfast commitment to the security and stability of Ukraine, we will take an approach that meets the needs of Ukraine as well as the capacity of our country. And we will continue to leave the door open for continued engagement in terms of needs as the situation evolves. As I said, this file occupies my attention every single day, and we are, in fact, preparing to take a trip to that region to ensure that we are in very close touch with the Ukrainian governments and responding to their needs.
What have they said in immediate response to this announcement that we've heard today, Minister?
I was communicating with Minister Reznikov, and he is very happy with the announcement today.
We've heard from Ukrainian Canadians, and we certainly heard from Minister Freeland on this, saying, though, that it's not just about the human connections, not just about the diaspora, that this is about, these aren't the words she used, but right and wrong authoritarianism versus, democracy, and sending a message to the world. What message do you want to send, though, to Canadians and Ukrainian Canadians who are watching and worried that this isn't enough to stop what they deeply fear is coming?
The security and stability and the sovereignty of Ukraine is of foremost importance to the federal government here in Canada. And we will continue to work to ensure that the rules-based international order continues to be upheld. That order, which was put into place after the Second World War and which has allowed democracy to flourish and people living in those democracies to live in a free and peaceful way. That is foremost in my mind and the mind of my colleagues every single day, and we will continue to work very hard to protect it, including in terms of a potential further invasion by Russia in Ukraine.
Two more questions before we let you go. Minister, NATO, the Secretary General saying the alliance needs to be prepared for the worst here. Of course, everyone hopes it doesn't get to that point. But what is Canada prepared to do in terms of bolstering those NATO deployments in Eastern Europe?
We have been in very close touch with our NATO allies, including from General Wayne Eyre's perspective and the Canadian Armed Forces involvement in potential planning. We are, of course, acting in lockstep with our allies and making sure that our contribution and our participation in that alliance is steadfast. I will reiterate that it is the rules-based international order that we should be remembering must be upheld, and Canada will play its part and will continue to play its part to ensure that occurs.
Minister, finally, does this announcement today and what we've been hearing from around the world, does this all signal that an invasion is imminent?
At the current time, Russia has a choice to negotiate diplomatically and de-escalate, or to face grave consequences in the area of potential sanctions, for example. That's the choice on the table at the current time. And our assistance and aid to Ukraine, along with our allies, aims to ensure that Ukraine and its democratic regime will continue to operate in a stable, in a secure, and a sovereign manner.
Minister Anand, we thank you for your time. We wish you safe travels, and we will connect again, hopefully.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.